I wish someone told me these things before I started collecting houseplants. Hi, I'm Emma Jean, and I'm the owner and plant enthusiast behind the propagation jar, and this is everything I've learned in the past 5 years of keeping houseplants. We all know that light and water work together to feed the houseplant, so shouldn't that be where we look to find all our plant care tips? We all learned in school that the water and the light come together to make the food the plant needs, but I think we need to understand how the light and the water work together to create a good environment for the plant. Most of the time when people tell you this plant can survive in low light, that's not the case. Most plants actually do need a bright spot to be able to process how the food is being put forth. Think of the kind of light the plant is getting as like the gas for the car or the steam for the engine. Using up the water that's stored in the pot and the roots and the leaves effectively is the reason your plants are going to thrive. It's not some 5,000 step routine. It's not the perfect fertilizer. It's not this specific grow light. It's going to be finding a place where your plant is using up that light and water when it needs to and how it needs to. Once you figure out those two things, you can keep every single plant alive. A lot of stores will market plants as easy maintenance or low light, when in reality, low light plants just decline slower than other house plants do. After all this talk about light, all you need to know is that there's 4 different kinds of light. There is low light. That is where your plant is very, very far from the window. It's a dark corner. Basically never put a house plant here. There's medium light. It's maybe like 10 feet away from a well-lit window. It's still getting some of that ambient light from the window, but it is not getting enough sun to sustain amazing growth. Now, to be fair, a lot of plants do well in medium light, but it's not ideal for 90% of houseplants. The bright indirect light, that is the sweet spot for basically the other 90% of those plants. That bright indirect light is a bright spot that is warm, it's welcoming. The plants can see the sky from their window. They're either directly in the window or only a few feet from it. Now that bright light, the bright light are the rays of sunshine that are directly hitting the plant. Think where a cat would nap. That is bright light. It is intense. You need to be careful around this level of light. A lot of plants can handle a few hours of bright light, especially in the morning when it's less intense. The evening light, on the other hand, it is very harsh direct light. That can cause burning of the leaves or crisping. It can also overly dry out your plants because it's also zapping and burning all of the water out of the leaf itself, but also the plant is trying to soak up as much water as possible to sustain from getting burnt. Now that we're talking about watering, we'll go into the second most important factor of plant care. When you're watering a plant, I need you to take the thought of how often you water it out of your brain. I need you to take the amount of water you give it out of your brain. We are starting fresh. We're learning these new skills that are actually going to help you keep houseplants alive. This is why I will never give someone a direct step-by-step for every single plant, because in every single home, the care is going to be different. I do not believe in watering schedules, but I do believe in learning the signs from your plants when it is time to be watered. You need to be more focused about how much that plant is drying out versus what day of the week it is and how dry you think it may be. That is why every time I water a plant, I am sticking a skewer or my finger down in the dirt to see the moisture levels so I can tell how much water is actually being stored in the pot. People come to me with their plant problems, be like, I'm watering this once a week, but it's turning mushy or it's turning crispy, but I'm watering it. I'm on a schedule. Isn't that enough? And I want to tell people that's not what real plant care is. Yes, you can have a schedule for when you check things, but that schedule should be when you're checking, not necessarily when you're watering or repotting. That is why I never recommend a schedule to any new plant parent. I teach them how to read the signs like wilty leaves or rotten smells, or pest even is a good indication of your plant care styles and how healthy that plant is doing. For instance, a cactus likes to fully dry out. It does not like to keep any water in the pot, and it likes to lose some of its internal water before it's been watered again. Kind of like a balloon. When a cactus soaks up all the water, the actual cactus part of the plant is going to be thick, it's going to be firm, and it's going to be plump. When you notice that they're starting to wrinkle maybe a little bit and they're losing some of that water, they have time to expand back once you water it. Overwatering and rot, either in the roots or the stem, is a good indication that you didn't let the cactus deflate any before you gave it more water. So it accepted that water, but instead of just staying okay, it got bigger. It exploded, so to speak. That is where that rot will come from, because those little plant cells cannot hold as much water as you gave it. That is also why drainage is so important. If you take like only 3 things from this video, this is one of them I want you to take. Drainage is mandatory. Drainage is the way to keep your houseplants out of constant water, because obviously out in the wild, they do have a drainage system, but it's just more dirt. The houseplants can dig deeper. They can create better, bigger, more robust root systems where the water will drain all the way through that soil instead of being stuck in a tiny little pot. That pot is their whole environment. The root's home and the quality of that home is going to reflect the entire plant's health. When you let that water drain out of those holes and it's not constantly sitting in water, that pot is holding the water it needs to hold. It's not accepting that excess water that may be stuck in the bottom of the pot. And the whole rocks in the bottom thing, that doesn't actually work. You need those holes so that water can go elsewhere other than inside the pot. Another thing I'm constantly telling new plant owners is that underwatering is 100% better than overwatering. A plant can recover from underwatering a lot quicker than it can from overwatering. Overwatering, you have problems like root rot, which is extremely hard to get rid of and to cure. You'll have fungal infections. You'll create an ideal environment for pests like fungus gnats. A plant is not going to recover from that kind of stress, especially once it reaches the stem or the petioles. But underwatering, those roots are staying intact to a certain point, and they just need rehydrated. The soil might get a little hydrophobic, but that's an easy fix by either giving it new soil or loosening up the old soil. A plant may wilt and it may deflate a little bit, but it can always be inflated more after it's deflated. Now back to root health. Root health is the most important part. The roots are their stability. That is why repotting shock is a huge turnoff for most plants. It'll stress them out. That is why learning when to repot and when to uppot are very important to know the difference between. Most plant people will just say repot when they need to uppot as well, but there is a difference between the two. A lot of people tend to put their plant in too big of a pot, which ties right back to all the overwatering issues. There's too much water being held in the substrate. It's going to leave those roots constantly needing more oxygen and air. A good sign that your plant needs uppotted, put into a pot size that is 1 to 2 inches larger, is the roots coming out of the bottom of the pot or up on top of the pot. It's drying out far too quickly. You notice stunt growth or smaller growth. That is the great sign that you need to put it in a slightly bigger pot. But sometimes the plant just needs new soil or a new environment instead of going up a pot size, and that is when repotting comes into play. The first reason being crappy soil, so either it's like very dense, there's not a whole lot of air in it, or you've had pest or fungal issues. Second one being the soil has run out of nutrients. If that soil runs out of nutrients, that plant cannot accept anything else, and it's just sitting in a dead substrate, so to speak. Yes, fertilizer can fix that, but there is natural properties that these plants get from their soil substrates, so you don't always have to fertilize. Now that you know the difference between the two, you're also a lot less likely to have root shock. It's also not the end of the world. Yes, the plant's not going to look so hot for a few weeks, but it will thank you in the end because you're giving it the conditions it needs. We're trying to replicate the comfy, beautiful harmony of the wild, and we can't necessarily do that in most of our homes. So giving them the best chances for survival is going to be one of the best things you can do for a plant, is making sure it has good quality lighting, good quality drainage, a good watering routine, not schedule, that lets the plant breathe when it needs to breathe and deflate when it needs to deflate. And giving it a home in its pot where it's going to have the best chances of survival versus just throwing it in some cute pot and hoping it does well. These are living things. I don't think a whole lot of people realize they need care just like we do. We can only thrive in certain environments, and they can only thrive in certain environments. They aren't just a piece of decor to keep, even though they're gorgeous. That's what I love being a houseplant stylist for. But taking care of them, making them all the more beautiful and letting them grow to their full potential is part of keeping them as decor. And I know what you're saying. I know it's hard. I have a black thumb. I can't keep it alive. Yada, yada, yada. Trust me, I used to kill every single plant that I bought, and it took me 3.5 years to learn and figure out the signs that plants give you in order to take care of them. And now I've been running a plant shop for 1.5 years and I've sold hundreds of plants all across the US. There's hope for everybody, trust me. You just have to start. Starting is the hardest part. If you really want to start taking care of houseplants and learning how to take care of them, I highly recommend you like and follow this video for more. Check out the link in the description that's going to take you to my shop where I sell easy to care for plants. And there's even a few rare ones up there that you won't see very many places. You will also find easy plant care products that make collecting so much easier than what some people make it out to be. It really isn't that hard. A cactus needs to fully dry out, but anthuriums don't like to dry out basically at all. Same with ferns and alocasias. They all have similar care versus a cactus, Hoya, and a succulent all have similar care as well. Do your research before you bring your plant home. Don't just buy a plant because it's pretty. It's not gonna go well for anybody involved. You need to find what makes you happy in your collection and what's easy for you to take care of, because once you find that rhythm that you need, you're gonna fall in love with the hobby. Now, if it's not your thing, it's not your thing, and that's okay. But I'm here to help people realize keeping houseplants really isn't that scary. You just need to know the fundamentals that we aren't taught, because these big companies just want to sell you a succulent without telling you it's gonna die if you forget to water it a couple times, or if you overwater it, there's no bringing it back. It may be labeled as an easy plant, but that's only if you do it a certain way. The real easy plants are the ones that are forgiving, so you aren't constantly under or over watering it, or you're not stressing it out because it doesn't have enough light. Those are the easy plants that work well with your planting style and work well in the environment in your home. Yes, it does take some trial and error, and you're going to kill a few on this journey, but that's okay. I still kill plants. You kidding me? I have 200 to 300 in my home right now. I'm still gonna kill a plant every once in a while. It's a journey, and you have to be okay with that journey. Each plant has different growing conditions than the next. Some might require that medium light, others might like that full sun. Others might like to dry out all the way, others might like to be wet all the time. It's that balance that you need to find, and I'm here to help you find it. So, you guys have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!